Jesus' name this morning. The devotions are reading from 1 Samuel 17. A very familiar story. It goes along well with what I was thinking about. So, I'll read all the things. 1 Samuel 17, I'll read verses 32 through 51. And David said to Saul, "Let no man Saul ever go with me. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine." And Saul said to David, "Thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth." And David said unto Saul, "Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his feet, and smote him, and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God." David said, "Moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine." And Saul said unto David, "Go, and the Lord be with thee." And Saul armed David with his armor, and put an helmet of brass upon his head. Also he armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, "I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them." And David put them on him. And he took his staff in his hand, and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook, and put them in a shepherd's bag, which he had even in a scrip. And a sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. And the Philistine came on and drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield went before him. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth and ruddy and of a fair countenance. And the Philistine said unto David, "Am I a dog that thou comest to me with staves?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, "Come to me, and I will give flesh unto the fowls of the air, and to the beasts of the field." Then said David to the Philistine, "Thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield. But I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand, and I will smite thee, and take thine head from thee, and I will give the carcasses of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air, and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. And all this assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands." And it came to pass, when the Philistine arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hastened and ran forth an army to meet the Philistines. And David put his hand in his bag, and took thence a stone, and slang it, and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine, and slew him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. Therefore David ran and stood upon the Philistine, and took his sword, and drew it out of the sheath thereof, and slew him, and cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. What I was thinking about was talking a little bit about fear. And, I was wondering, as I read this, was David scared when he went out against Goliath? But this account doesn't show. Really, don't say anywhere that there was an ounce of fear there. But how did David really feel? Did he really have no fear, or was he just able to work through his fear? And I had to wonder, if he had no fear, is it possible for us to go through life with no fear. I know if that's the case where he had zero fear about going out against Goliath, I got a long way to go to get to that point. But I think we know that whether David felt scared or if he really didn't have an ounce of fear in him, that the reason he had this courage, it came from his trust in God. We have that same God today. And knowing that, I'm able to work through some of my fears sometimes. I'm having to work through some of them right now. But in his weakness, I had to wonder how did David really feel scared? Or, was he just so totally confident that he didn't feel any fear? And I started thinking of this, of having fear, because it's just kind of a time in my life where I guess maybe more than time in the past where I guess I feel more fear about some things. It seems like there's a lot of uncertainty around us. There's a lot going on around us. We say there's a lot going on. There's probably been, if you ask anybody down through history, they probably had a lot going on too. It just seems like there's a lot going on, and just you don't know how things are going to work out, and so you question, what's going to happen. I'm someone who I really don't like to step out of my comfort zone, and I guess you might say I have a pretty small comfort zone, but I don't really like stepping out of that. When I'm required to step out, it brings fear. And also we go to Psalm 27. It's a psalm David wrote, and I can see from this passage maybe a little bit where he got his courage from. I'll read down the whole chapter there, Psalm 27. That the Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life, of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked, even mine enemies and my foes, came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell. Though no should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. The Lord shall rise against me, and this will I be confident. One thing I have desired of the Lord, that will I seek after, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. When in time of trouble, he shall hide in his pavilion, in the secret of his tabernacle shall he hide me. He shall set me up upon a rock, and now shall mine head be lifted up above mine enemies round about me. Therefore will I offer in his tabernacle sacrifices of joy. I will sing praises unto the Lord. Hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice. Have mercy also upon me, and answer me. When thou saidst, seek ye my face, my heart said unto thee, thy face, Lord, will I seek. Hide not thy face far from me. Put not thy servant away from me. Thou hast been my help. Leave me not, neither forsake me, O God of my salvation. When my father and my mother forsake me, then the Lord will take me up. Teach me thy way, O Lord, and lead me in a plain path because of mine enemies. Deliver me not over unto the will of mine enemies, for false witnesses are risen up against me, and such as breathe out cruelty. I had fainted, unless I had believed to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen thine heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. And like I said, you read over that, you see maybe where David got his courage. Look at that, he had complete trust and confidence in God. And verse 1 there, that's me is a very powerful verse. The Lord is my life and my salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life, of whom shall I be afraid? And I say the same thing as David there, with full confidence and fully trusting in God. And yeah, in that verse there, it's in question form, but I don't think David had any question. I think it was more of a statement. Whom shall I fear? Whom shall I be afraid of? The answer is there's nobody or nothing that we need to be afraid of. And then also going down verse 5 there, it says, for in the time of trouble he shall hide me in his pavilion, in the secret of his tabernacle shall he hide me. He shall set me up upon a rock. The throat issue. Yeah, and looking at that, God will always keep us safe in time of trouble. And I had to think, it might not always be at home safe in our lazy boy drinking a nice cup of coffee. That might not be what our safe place looks like, but yeah, it might not be something as grand or as glorious as slaying a giant and defeating our enemies, but yeah, sometimes maybe the only, like it says, shall hide me in his pavilion. Maybe the only pavilion he hides us in is knowing that he has a plan. And his plan fits no matter what it looks like right now. And in thinking of fear and the things I fear, I had to wonder how much of the fears I face come from my attachment to this world. Do I fear losing earthly things more than I fear losing my relationship with God? Do I fear looking weird or being ridiculed by those around me more than I fear missing an opportunity to witness to someone? And I think too often I find that in my own life that's the case. I lose sight of things of God and start fearing the things in the earth here around me. And I think that's very important to me to not focus on the world around me. I hear many people talking about news and politics and stuff, and I don't know if there's anything wrong with that, knowing what's going on. But for me, when I hear that, I feel sorry for people that have to get all into that. It just sounds really depressing to me, which I know that people have different interests. Some people just find it more interesting than others, but yeah, just a lot of focus on what's going around you. It just seems kind of depressing to me. And I'm thinking of myself. A lot of the fears I face, I think about things like that I'll be able to always be able to provide a comfortable life for my family. The big thing I think about is, what's the world going to look like for my children? What are they going to face? And yeah, there's just a lot of things that have to do with just hanging on to this world. Think about, it really doesn't matter what we have to face here. We have something a lot better coming, no matter what's here. And it's just a real challenge to me. Like I said, that I guess more than most times in my life, I felt like there were things that just make me a little bit uncomfortable, maybe stepping out of my comfort zone a little bit. And so, I was thinking about this, and just challenging me to focus on the right things and not fear the things here in this world. Yeah, like I said, somewhere else, not fear what man can do to me. Because we have a power that is higher than anything we can face here. All right, I think that's all I had. Maybe about this for sure. Lord, we just come before you this morning, Lord, we thank you for this day given to us, and we thank you for allowing us to gather together like this, to worship you, and the freedom we have to do this, and thank you for allowing us to be together. And Lord, I pray you work in our hearts, Lord, that you help us not to fear the things here in this world, but Lord, to focus on you and draw close to you. Lord, I pray you go with us throughout this service. Just pray you bless each one in this part. Lord, I pray you help us to be open to what you have for us. Just pray you go with us and keep us. Pray in Jesus' name. Amen. At this time, the children, teachers can be dismissed.
Okay. Is it? I don't have to move anything. Just okay.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome everyone to class. Are there any announcements or prayer requests?
I see Gloria Odenhall didn't in here. I don't know if she's sick or what, but I'm going to make an announcement about her right now.
Okay.
We need to pray for her. She has been asked to speak over in Barn Rock, South Carolina, kind of on the same topic that she had at the ladies' seminar, but it's for younger generation of how to teach their children about the birds and bees and everything. And she's a little troubled about it. She had thought it would be easy if it would be the same thing that she had at ladies' seminar. But this is, and she feels like she's in the middle of that stage of life herself and doesn't really have answers. But she has said she will do it. And it is March the 8th, I think. It's at their ladies' sewing center. And she needs our prayers.
Let's continue to pray for Lamar and Joel. Yes, he's at the hospital. Any other round of treatment that he's going to be really tough, but yeah, God can make the side effects minimal, so let's just remember them. It's cancer. And also for Layla Bernie. I don't know how many people extend the others. Young man, his name is Wendell. Young man's name is Wendell, and I'm not sure what
20 years old, I went out to the mail, and a truck hit him, a car hit him. I don't see why he's still living. I mean, it's just, he had multiple ribs broken on both sides. He has to take his spleen out, his liver is damaged, his pelvis is fractured in multiple places. The main artery to his heart was severed, or almost severed, and I'm not sure what all else. He's terribly, terribly injured. And they gave him 36 pints of blood.
Give him what?
36 pints of blood to try to save his life. And he's still in critical condition, but just pray for him that he will recover and pray for his parents too. Saul and worries about money. Not especially when I got to the mail all the time, mowing up and stuff on the road and stuff. Because, I mean, you just can't ever tell what driver's gonna come along and not care. Because there was, one of the field guys from Weather King, said that his grandmother was out mowing the yard along the roadside. And a driver came, he had to get off the road to hit her, and he hit her and killed her. And so, yeah, just like Trent said this morning, there's lots of things we fear about, but still we have to trust in God to take care of us through day by day.
Continue praying for my dad. He had another fall the other night, which thankfully it wasn't just real bad. But I know it's probably discouraging to him because, well, we don't let him drive, and he does have a Ranger that we would, like, he is able to drive that some, but since his first episode of when he fell, his brain bleed, the doctor said that he'd have to wait 6 months to be able to drive his Ranger. And he had a fall, I forget when it was, like after his first one, and now with him having this one the other night, that means that's another 6 months. And it's just kind of his only way to, I mean, not his only way to get out of the house, like I'd rather than take him places, but that's, him driving his Ranger is kind of a highlight for him to be able to get out through the day a little bit. And so now to have this happen again, I know it probably just, seems discouraging to him. So just, remember him, please.
If there are no others, Carla, could you pray for us this morning?
Sure. Jared, thank you so much for the day that you've given us. Thank you for allowing us to come to church, to worship you, to just forget about all the other things that just take time to worship you and honor you, God. God, I don't remember all the people, but you know each one of them. God, just be with each one in a real way. There's different circumstances that are in each one of their lives, God, and you know each one, and you can be with them in the way that they need the best. God, just also be with Karen as she leads out. Help her to not be nervous and be able to say what you lay on her heart. Just thank you for this day. Amen.
Okay, we're in Job again, and it's comforts and critics. There is usually a spark of truth to every deception or false teaching. Job's so-called friends may have meant well to start with. Their advice was partially correct, but was often based on the false philosophies of the day. Let us make sure that our advice to others is grounded in the truth of God's word. And the focus is to learn to care more for the sufferer than the reason of his sufferings. Recognizing that we all suffer because of the sin that came into the world. So I'll go ahead and read. John, you want to start?
Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that was come upon him, they came every one from his own place. Eliphaz the Temanite, and Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite, for they had made an appointment together to come to mourn with him and to comfort him.
And when they lifted up their eyes afar off, and knew him not, they lifted up their voice and wept, and they rent every one his mantle, and sprinkled dust upon their heads toward heaven.
So they sat down with him upon the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and none spake a word unto him, for they saw that his grief was very great.
Then answered Bildad the Shuhite and said,
How long wilt thou speak these things, and how long shall the words of thy mouth be like a strong wind?
Is God forbid judgment or death, but Almighty forbid justice.
If thy children have sinned against him, and he have cast them away for their transgression,
If thou wouldest seek unto God betimes, and make thy supplications to the Almighty.
If thou wert pure and upright, surely now he would await for thee, and make the habitation of thy righteousness prosperous.
Though thy beginning was small, yet thy latter end should greatly increase.
For inquire, I pray thee, of the former age, and prepare thyself for the search of their fathers.
For we are but of yesterday, and know nothing, because our days upon earth are a shadow.
Shall not they teach thee and tell thee the matter words out of their heart? Then Job answered and said, I have heard many such things, until my comforters are evil.
Shall vain words have an end, or what emboldeneth thee that thou answerest?
I also could speak as ye do, if your soul were in my soul stiff. I could heap up words against you, and shake my head at you.
But I would strengthen you with my mouth, and the moving of my lips should assuage your grief.
Okay, what are your thoughts or questions over the lesson?
my prayer is verse 5. That in the last miserable comforters, that when I see people going through something, that I wouldn't pass judgment or use my words to discourage them, but that I would assuage the grief, lessen the grief.
How do we lessen somebody's grief?
I think it can be different ways, but like here, I don't know. Sometimes I think it's good just not to say anything, but to be there beside them and cry with them, or and not try to make things better for them, because often you can't. But you can just simply sit beside them, and I don't know.
I know, at the time of Winford's funeral, there was a couple that came through the line, at the viewing, and we didn't know who we were. And they didn't know us, except they saw Winford's obituary in the Goshen News, and they said, we're just here because we also lost a son and we know what it feels like. And that's all. They said, we care.
And I think sometimes, you can say things in meaning in a good way, but when that person is hurting as deeply as they are, sometimes it cuts.
I think we need to remember it's not a time to preach a sermon. It's not the time to show any of my wisdom. They basically know that. And like someone said, just your presence. I think it means as much as more than a lot of words at that time.
Yeah, I know, sometimes sometimes when you go to a viewing, it's always like, kind of get nervous, like, what do you say to that person? But really, yeah, like most of y'all said, just really nothing, or to say that I'm praying for you just means the most. And I know even for me, like, I remember some of the people coming through my mom's viewing line, and they would share like a good memory of her, and that was even comforting, or something that like stood out to them. And I mean, yeah, it's a sad time, but yet sometimes those things that meant what she did for people was like, yeah, comforting, and just felt kind of like a hug. And I know I'm not perfect in this area, but I know something else that I think that can help kind of lessen your grief. Sorry, it's not coming out right, but is to even remember the date, like years later, just to let your friends know, or if you know of someone that has lost someone special to them, and just send them a text or whatever on that day and say, I'm praying for you, like that. Just to know that they still remember means so much, or to me anyhow. But like I said, I'm not perfect in that area to let everybody else know. But yeah, it helped me out to remember those that are hurting.
And there's somebody that, Clifford's been gone for 36 years.
How long?
84, 32, 30. Anyhow, a lot of years. And every year on the anniversary of his death, I don't think she's going to come back. She sends us a card of encouragement and a letter. And it's just really something, because we just know that, when that time rolls around, she's going to be thinking about us. It's really a blessing.
Okay, there on the first one, it talks about Job's friends. They made an appointment to come together to mourn with him, and when they lifted up their eyes from afar, they knew him not. I know we talked a little bit last Sunday about the boils from head to foot, how the pain that would be, but according to what I had read, they figured there was a little bit of a time between when they heard and when they got there, because there was a little bit of a distance for them to come. But so when they saw him, they knew him not. They lifted up their voice, and they rent their mantles and sprinkled dust on. Then they sat down on the ground for 7 days and nights, and no one said a word, because they saw his grief was great. So now we were talking about sitting with people. Did we sit with him 7 days? And they sat in silence for 7 days. But from what I gathered, it was custom to sit. When somebody would die, they would sit with somebody for 7 days in silence.
So if it was a custom, then I guess that would be one thing. I was just thinking, I don't know if I can keep my mouth shut. If I would joke, what are you here for? What you sitting there looking at, whatever. But if it was a custom, I guess maybe.
The youth's question said, why did Job's friend weep and tear their clothes and cover their heads with dust? Their answer was, one of the elements of comfort is to share in another's grief. Job's friends tried to do this literally by tearing their clothes and covering their heads with dust, weeping loudly. This show of grief was commonly used to mourn another's death. The custom then was to sit in silence for 7 days, mourning the loss. Job's friends may have been implying through their display that they recognized the extreme extent of his grief.
If I would have lost everything like he did, I probably would have sat 14 days and did nothing. I mean, didn't want to talk. Yeah, it would have been hard to me anyway, to see, like, even if your friends are beside you, as much as he lost.
On top of the physical pain.
Yeah, but you wouldn't feel like talking. I wouldn't anyway.
Well, I know for myself, once I hit a certain level of pain, I don't really want to talk to anybody, even if they're asking me how I'm doing, I don't really want to talk to them.
I just can't imagine how lonely he felt when his wife took him. His wife and his friends, I can't imagine how lonely he felt.
These chapters take up the majority of the book and teach some valuable lessons on what to say and what not to say when people are suffering. We do learn important lessons about what goes on behind the scenes when believers suffer. The notion that suffering indicates a person has sinned and that physical blessings only come when a person is godly are not right concepts. Some things about Job's friends to be admired. They at least came to Job and wept with him. They came to Job instead of going to other people to gossip. They had good intentions and no doubt wanted the best for Job. They failed, as we learned, in accepting too many of the false philosophies of their days. And I thought that was really good because we so often get so hard on his friends. But they did. They made an effort. They came. They sat. And though it's not in the lesson, Job was the first to talk. Job talked before they did. And I thought, I wouldn't have thought about it. They could have went behind his back and talked to other people about it.
I guess it was kind of challenging to me how his three friends came there and sat there for 7 days. I mean, I think they truly cared. Like, I mean, when you can look all around and there's people that are hurting, and do I reach out in just a small way, send them a card or go see them or whatever? I mean, that can be hard sometimes to make it happen. But if we care, I think we need to try our best to show them that we care, because I mean, if they can sit for 7 days, surely we can at least let them know we're praying for them.
So all of this sitting for 7 days, all this stuff going through their mind, and all of a sudden, they hashed over it for 7 days.
Yeah, I thought about that. I talked about what they were, how their minds were going for 7 days, and I was like, man, my mind would go real far in 7 days.
It seems like they could have said a little bit nicer things if they thought about it for 7 days. I mean, I know some of the things were, maybe legitimate questions, but at that point it just seemed like they were judging a little bit, I guess. But, yeah. And then Job just told miserable comforters are you all.
Well, I found it really interesting if you read what Job first said to them. In chapter 3, he starts out, after this opened Job his mouth and cursed his day, and Job spake. And he basically cursed the day he was born. He wasn't sure why he didn't die in his mother's womb. And I was like, I think we probably all, at some point in our life, identified with that, wondering why are we still alive? Why? And I know I can. I mean, after I had my miscarriage, there were days I wondered why I didn't die. I really wished I would have died. That being said, we have to remember that we still have a purpose in life. As long as we're alive, God has a reason, a plan for us. And then I know we talked a little bit about last Sunday, we feel sometimes, well, God's trying to teach us something, God show us what you want us to learn so we can hurry up and learn it. And Danae told me this morning before she walked out of the house, she said, Mom, I hope Sunday school goes good for you. She said, I came across a quote the other day I'm going to give to you, because she said, it doesn't really pertain to Job. But she said it does a little bit. And when I read it, I had to read it a couple times to really get the gist of it, and it really spoke to me. It said, we are not necessarily doubting that God will do what is best for us. We are wondering how painful the best will turn out to be. So I'll read it again. We are not necessarily doubting that God will do what is best for us. We are wondering how painful the best will turn out to be. I thought that was pretty powerful. And that's from C.S. Lewis. And I don't know, it just really struck a chord with me, because when you're in that and you really like, okay, Lord, you know, you're trying to teach me something, or what, I really want to learn, because I really don't enjoy this pain. Yeah, I just thought that was really good.
Along with that, it really isn't wrong, is it, to think or say why? Because we do wonder, but we deep down we do want to learn, and we know the ultimate is it is for our good. God has allowed it. God sees something good coming out of it, and He sees I'm strong enough to take this. So I don't think it's wrong to say, you know, why, and kind of search my life.
Even Jesus said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?
I think one thing to remember is, do we tend to think in our minds that for the believer, things are always going to be better than for the unbeliever? And do we just think that if someone is just continually suffers or continually has bad things come into their life, that, wait a minute, does he have sin in his life? You know, we tend to think that way because we want to kind of maybe, I don't know, say, search your life. You must have some sin in your life. But really, that's not the case. It tells us how many places in the Bible that we will suffer persecution. And so, and then when we go to that person and try to reason with him and say, you know, search your life out. Maybe you were, you know, had your, your confidence too much in your wealth. So God is taking it away from you. Well, no, that doesn't necessarily have to be the thing. I think the person that is suffering, has lost a loved one, or has bad experience in financial, or whatever it may be, has lost relationship, it's not for us to try to figure out why. God has a purpose in it. And that person, as you go to him or her and try to reason with them, hey, they can tell if you really, really have love for them, or if you really, really are concerned or are trying to comfort, or it's just trying to bring out something bad in their life. You know, trying to say, see, if only you would have. We tend to do that too often. Try to find something bad in their life. This is why this is happening to you. But I don't think God does it that way.
Here for the young adults, this goes really good with that. It says, he made his bed. We tend to be less compassionate toward those who suffer because of their bad choices. Let's learn from Jesus, who, as far as we know, never made an issue of the cause of the sickness in someone. He healed. And hanging on the cross, innocent himself, he reached out and comforted ones who were suffering because of evil doings, welcoming him into the kingdom. We may choose not to give money to a homeless drunkard, but should we not sorrow for his condition and his suffering, even if, most likely, we may not know for sure, he has brought it upon himself? If we care enough, we may even try to find a way to help him to the one who can meet his needs. And I know that where it says that, you know, let's learn from Jesus that he never made an issue from the cause of sickness in someone. He just healed. And we're like, you know, so often we're like, well, you know, if they would have done this, or if they would have, or if I were in their shoes, I would do this or that. When you're in those shoes, it looks completely different. Something something else that it brought out quite a bit was a lot of what his friends had to say had an element of truth to it. But then there was just enough that brought judgment or that wasn't truthful. And I think, we can look back and we can say, well, we now know that it was Satan that went to God, and that's the reason all this happened to Job. They didn't know. And it's like, in our day and age, we can't see, into the spirit world. We can't look back when we're in the present. You can't, say, sometimes when you have time, you can look back and say, well, maybe it was, you can understand it a little bit more. But in the present, you can't. They were in the present. They did not know what had happened in heaven, I don't think. So I think we need to be really careful when we, that we need to comfort instead of criticize. Is there anything else over that first part? Then going into the second part there where it talks about Bildad and what all he had to say. What are your thoughts on that? I guess verse 4 really stood out to me. He said, if thy children have sinned against him, he may have cast them away in their transgressions. I was like, wow, you're telling him your children sin, that's why they're gone.
So that didn't come from a heart of understanding love. He was assuming that his children had sinned, which there's an element of truth in that too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, mix a little bit of truth in with something bad, and it's a false.
So there was a half-truth in what Bildad was saying. God does punish the wicked, and he does bring blessing upon the righteous. Even in his judgment of sin, the Lord displays righteousness. So in spite of this, it is not true that when a person experiences loss and suffering, it is always because he sinned. When Lazarus was sick and his sisters sent to tell Jesus, Jesus answered, the sickness is not of death, not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified. We also remember the man who was blind from birth. Jesus said, neither hath this man sinned nor his parents, but that the work of God should be made manifest in him. Then it says, Bildad brought the same accusation Satan brought against Job, saying, Job served God for earthly reward. The idea that the righteous should always prosper is similar to the ideas of the modern health, wealth, and prosperity teaching. If you do what's right, especially if you give to their cause, God will certainly bless you. They usually emphasize Old Testament examples of godly men that prospered. The New Testament says, all that live godly in Christ Jesus shall suffer persecution. Question 3 goes along with that. What is flawed about Bildad's if question? It says Bildad was a typical human. He had a flawed reasoning. He began forming cause and effect scenarios, and he felt he understood. But simply coming up with an if this then statement doesn't make it true. Saying, if you have trouble, God is against you, may sound logic to us, but it does make it true. If you are financially prosperous, God is blessing you is another statement that many believe is accurate, but it is not. When we make if statements, we are assuming that we know the heart of man and the mind of God, and an impossibility, to say the least. Humility and wisdom will would have us put our hands to our mouths. Okay, the first bell rang, so I know you guys got more thoughts on all this.
I like how in the commentary in the last part it says, "You know all things work together for good to them that love God, to those who are called according to His purpose." It says, Job did not know too much New Testament promise, but he still experienced reality. It was a waiting on the Lord. And it says his earthly comforters were of little help to experience, but he could experience the comfort of the Lord. And that's what we can have as well. We can have God's comfort in you. Don't have it.
It says, we all have been hurt by criticism and know what it feels like. Let's let our experience teach us to be more merciful. And let's learn from these miserable comforters how not to do it, so that we can truly be more merciful and Christ-like in relating to those that suffer. So thank you all for your thoughts.
So how does this work? We're going to be at Jessica's wedding. Do you trade 2 weeks later? Like, so then
Just 1 week. Either 1 week or whatever you want
so near put my dress on her. Because it's not. Oh, so I never worn it. Is this supposed to go back in there?
Good morning. I want to welcome each one to the service this morning, and also want to welcome our visitors. Glad that you're here this morning as well. This morning we have, as far as announcements, the only thing we would have, I guess, is kind of what's in the bulletin. Here at no evening services planned here for this evening, and the bulletin has that Doug and Melinda will be hosting the youth, but that's supposed to be a free evening this evening for the youth, so that would be a change from what's in the bulletin. And also Wednesday evening, youth social, Martin and Karen.